What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Corked Stats NFL Live here on the Mayo Media Mix on YouTube, and you could, rate, review, and download the podcast on all of your, providers that are worth anything. Now, I'm going to be a good host this time, and instead of rambling, which I promise I will do, let me introduce my awesome guests. Yes, it's the hosts of ITL. Man, guys, I've looked up to you as content creators, and then we've really become friends. It's really been awesome. Scotty Bogman and Chris Welsh. Guys, introduce yourself. I know you have so much great stuff going on. Scotty, you first. What's up, man?
Thank you, John. Yeah, I appreciate that. You can follow me on the Twitter at Bogman Sports. Of course, one half of In This League with the Welsh here, and excited to talk some football today. Welshie, how about you? You excited, buddy?
I'm excited, buddy. I just noticed in how I have more facial hair than you right now there, Pat. Bogman had to shave that beard off the other day. But yes, you can find me on Twitter. Is it the Welsh? I'm on lots and lots of places, so I would just suggest following me on Twitter instead of plugging a gajillion things. But I would say ITL Fantasy Football Podcast. Come and hang out. And if you like chaos, you know what? Screw that. I'm going to plug everything now. I was going to plug anything. I'm plugging every single thing. Twitch.tv/InThisLeague. Bogman and I have been doing a live stream show Monday through Thursdays at 1 p.m. Eastern, and it's chaos. There's a lot of fantasy football stuff. Some of the days we do best balls. Some days we play Madden. We have a crazy Wheel Wednesday where I got Bogman to shave his face live on. So we like to have some fun. Fun in fantasy is important. So go check that out for one of the many things that we do.
Well, I've considered myself an ITL member and an Army member for quite literally for years and years. I've straight up, I've been a huge fan from baseball and then into football. And if anyone out there is unfamiliar with these guys' work, it's really so much fun. I know we're getting ready for another really fun football season. And guys, I'm actually trying to shake that reputation a bit. Like, I know I'm a fun guy, but I have this reputation for being really kind of cold analytically. I know I use a lot of stats for baseball, but for football, that's not really my thing. I don't think the answer is in a spreadsheet. And I had Dalton Del Don, who he doesn't either, right? Dalton would be the first guy to stick his rank. And I love that. I think you should be daring. Like, he has Saquon Barkley, RB3. I love stuff like that. I really do. Because he doesn't mind pushing up against the market. And that's exactly how I think you go about football. It's more about building profiles, narratives, pace, understanding, and for me, QB play. So, guys, let's get into some football stuff just right off the bat. Let's just tear it because I don't know how long I have on this wonderful weekend. All right, I want to overreact. That's what I was hoping to do because everyone seems to be doing it. Yeah, you know what? My regular, like, hi, how you doing? Seems like an overreaction to some people. Ask the guys to flex drift that. Anyway, all right, Welsh, you lead this one off. I want to go zero share, guys, because there really is way too much of this pity-pattiness going on about, like, oh, people work everybody into their analysis, right? So it's a way to kind of cop out. It really is. So let's overreact to this. It's a way that people cop out. Oh, you could anybody at the price. No, that's not the case. I believe that's a losing strategy. I believe that we get that after. I believe zero share is viable. You know what? Let's do that first. Chris, zero share. Do you think you should be lopping players off your player page outright?
Well, John, I would say that I do semi-believe in that there is a cost for every player. So I would say that. I think what you're saying as far as it being a losing strategy, I could see that because, like, the baseline of that would be that you don't really have a stance on any guy. But at the same time, though, I think there's, like, relative cost. But it's also, like, it's overarching thing. Like I'm going to give you an example. This is a good player, and this is going to be on both sides of it. This is a zero share player, and not that I would never draft them, but I don't have the same interest at their cost, which inherently means I will never own them because they're never going to fall. Because I would tell you when people are like, I would never draft this player. Guess what? I would draft Antonio Gibson if he continues to fall. He was like third, fourth round player early on in the offseason. Now he's moved into round 5 or 6. Maybe that's a lazy argument, but I think there is a situation where I'm taking the risk, even though there's a lot of things pushing against it. But one of those players is like a really high player, and I'm careful about saying this, but DeAndre Swift, Bogman and I have done 10 mock drafts. We've probably done 5 best balls on there. We're closing in on at least just 20 just funsy drafts here. I've never once drafted DeAndre Swift. And it's not that I don't think he is a talented player, but where that cost is, I have little interest in buying into that next big breakout. I know he's like an immensely popular player for the next big breakout. I think that offense is atrocious. I think Jamal Williams is still going to have his role. And I think DeAndre Swift is capped kind of like in what he was. I don't know if there's a big major push. Now, here's the difference. The guys below him, you talked about Saquon Barkley. I moved Saquon Barkley above him. There's rumors about Kareem Hunt leaving Cleveland, which I know it's easy to say like, hey, Dearness Johnson might be the guy that just takes straight 1-for-1 over the Kareem Hunt role. But I think Nick Chubb is going to re-increase that role. Plus, I think he is insanely talented. Javonte Williams, another one of those players I want to buy back in on when Melvin Gordon says, hey, they want him to be the guy. So this isn't quite the answer that you're looking for, because I know you'd be looking for more of like the breakdown of why is this player the zero player. I think the upside of what he produced versus last year and what he would do this year is kind of capped to what he did. And I believe there are players under him that have way higher upside. So he's become a zero share player in respect that I will never own him, because he never once in 15 drafts I've done has ever lined up where I've taken him. So it's fair to say from that standpoint, I can tell you he's a zero share player, because I have literally never done it. And I don't see myself doing it because the dude will never fall. People take him like the top 10.
Right. There are two ways kind of, I guess, to look at zero shares. The players that you're never going to end up with because the demand is too high. Yes. And then players that you're just out with outright. Now, exactly. I do agree with your take. The thing I disagree with is not that Gibson. Okay, so it's funny. He's a very good example. So Gibson is a very kind of realistic guy for a zero share, right? You can see where it kind of stinks. But for me, he is not a guy where there is no cost for him, because I believe there are outs. And I think that should be the answer to where you draw the line between the two of them. And I'll give you another example. Like one of the things so running back in a bad situation has outs always, no injuries. Pass catchers in bad situations, to me, generally don't have outs because they have a bad quarterback to begin with. And quarterback play generally doesn't get any better when you go to the backup, right? So
no Metcalf, no Lockett for you.
Oh, okay. Now we're getting somewhere. Scott, why don't you go first before I ramble again? Why don't you go first?
And I will add on the back end. I do have a running back that fits more in the mold of what you were asking more than what I gave you, so I can give that after as well.
Or we'll go after Scott. So so zero. Like, do you have players that you strictly say nay?
There's not anyone I'll say never to, but and that is kind of the standard fantasy football industry answer. If someone falls and falls and falls, even though you really don't like him, sometimes the guy's just on the top of your queue for like 3 rounds. You're like, all right, well, if they let him go again, I have to take him here, So there are those guys, but Rashad Penny, I mean, and I know that, Ken Walker, who I expect to have a huge breakout, enormous first year for the Seattle Seahawks, even in a bad offense. Rashad Penny finished the year off great. Yep. He is not as hurt. He's already a little banged up. He has a groin thing going on, but he's not as hurt as Walker going into the season. There's really not a question for him being ready for week 1. It seems like he will be good to go. So, there's some hype around him. You look at PFF and all of his underlying analytical stats. They were absolutely excellent last year. But, the old scout saying, John, availability is the best ability. This dude has taken 20 carries in a game twice. It was the last 2 games of last year. And,
some, are you buying the
one of the,
though? Are you
what's
buying
that?
it? Because the Walker news has been a bit mixed. I'm not sure how much I believe Carroll.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me. Yeah, look, Pete Carroll is Pollyanna Pete. Every player on his team is the best player that's ever lived. If he says a bad thing about a player, that player is bad.
But you think we get Walker week 1? That's what I'm worried about.
You know what? It doesn't really matter to me if we get him week 1 or not, because by week 5, he will be the better back.
And you can't draft him as your starter then.
Will probably be hurt by that point anyway, especially if he's getting 20 carries a game. So.
I've kind of like disagreed with that a little bit in that I think Penny is draftable. Like when you talk about the underlying stats from last year, he had the highest breakaway percentage at 52% of any back that had 100 carries. He had the highest yards after contact per attempt of any running back that 100 carries at 4.52. And like you talked about the PFF ratings, he was only one of 9 backs to have like the 80 run and 80 offensive score on PFF. Like he was insane last year.
He's a good running back. The
problem is he's always hurt. But Kenneth Walker just had a hernia and he's out. So that's where I differ a little bit. I think actually Penny comes at this huge value where I actually did what was it, Boggs? We were just doing it was I think it was the last mock draft. We did this multi-flex mock, which is on the In This League Fantasy Football Pod. And I went really heavy wide receiver in that one. Like I'm trying to remember who I took. I think I took like Debo, and then I took someone else really good. And then my first flex, I went Terry McLaurin. I had one running back, and I waited and waited, and I filled all of my flex spots, 3 flex spots with great wideouts. I think my final one was like Elijah Moore. And then it wasn't meant to be like a 0 running back strategy because I had one big name. I'm just forgetting who the hell it was right now. And then my second running back, because I went all these wide receivers, I went with Penny. And not like jumping up and down because I got Rashad Penny, but for having this like pseudo 0 running back strategy with all these wideouts, Penny's underlying stats early on in the season, they get me going. And he might not be the whole year, but I think you come into like drafting him in the 30s, knowing that like, okay, I've got some short run if you have a 0 running back strategy. I also took like 3 rookies after that. I took like 3 high-end potential RBs. That would be a place I would take like a Damian Pierce if I took Penny. I just think the underlying stats in that offense.
He's going to get work.
I think he's going to get that work.
Yeah,
those guys are viable. I think
that's who it was.
Najee,
Penny's another really interesting one. I think if you end up without running backs, you have no choice but to circle him. Now, throughout training camp, I've had him slide behind players maybe on better offenses, I think with the same kind of capabilities, maybe kind of archetype. Like I've been very big on Chase Edmonds, all that kind of zone gap running stuff they've been talking about. That's his style. And again, I'm not chasing 90% use anymore. Like I think those days are over. I think what you need to be looking for is the pass catching work, the work inside the 20s, hopefully somebody that can get you in the end zone sometime, right? Especially in PPR in particular. No one's really talking about standard. So I want to get back to the 0 share thing. Interestingly enough, it wasn't on my notes, but Scott, you nailed 2 guys. So 2 very good examples. They're both on my list, and this really works out perfectly. So somebody like Deebo Samuel. I can't get behind Samuel at all. I feel like the opportunities that we want, them splitting those into carries reduces the ceiling while increasing the risk. While we have a rookie quarterback on a team that is going to be looking to run like crazy, there's a lot of little red flags. Now they could be good, but there's also a pathway for Deebo Samuel to be a really good real life football player on a really good real life football team without him doing crazy fantasy stuff, right? Just him being gadgety, making catches, running the ball, scoring a touchdown here or there, but just we've seen it, what those lines might look like where he might have even been the player of the game, but doesn't really get to it. I have trouble getting with him because of the market. A guy like Lockett, though, I have been drafting at times because he falls and he falls and he falls and he falls. And it hits a point where I'm not, yes, I think Seattle is one of the most like toxic environments you could be in this year.
It's ugly.
His usage last year, this is Tyler Lockett's usage last year, was quite literally elite with capital letters. So at a certain point, if you believe at all in just opportunity at all, 24.25% target, 37.5% of the air yards with a 14.5%, 14.6 dot, I should say. Nobody in the league has that. Nobody does that. There is not anybody that does that. Those are just all the dials. That was my triple slash at the Athletic. Those are all the dials turned up to 11. So I think the lesson there, people, is you see how that's why these guys are so sharp, and I definitely recommend following their fantasy stuff through the year because I'm not going to be doing fantasy the way I was at Corked Stats. So thank you all again for supporting that show that we will be going forward with football, but I'm not really going to be having my fingers on fantasy, and these are the kind of guys I'm going to, and that's why, fellas. So I didn't take care of all the housework, but you know what? I'd rather that and give people information and then do some ads before you start with ads and begging for like buttons. So everybody, the show is brought to you by Jock Market. I'm going to be begging them for another promo. I don't know if they're going to give to us because we've been kind of kicking their butts in the JM streets every day because, of course, you get paid for being smart, which is kind of our thing, nuance and context pouring out of our noses. Don't forget that. Rate, review, and subscribe. The audio-only pod, and then put your cartoon fingers inside me right below us on YouTube because that stuff matters just more than it should. No one says, hey, is this guy sharp or is he smart or is he engaging? No, it's how many likes do you get? How many cartoon fingers can you get opposed to how many cartoon fingers can someone else get? So, all right, that's
or
enough.
How many threaded tweets you've done? How many threaded tweets have you done, John? Where you can find the 25 greatest fantasy players to help your team, and I'm going to tell you why in a 100 tweet thread that has 40.
I prefer movie plots in a big
words
tweet thread. That's what I prefer.
There's another conversation here about content creation and stuff. We're going to have to save for another day because I think my form of emulation is the sincerest form of flattery. Like when I say I've tried to copy you in a way of being unique, right? So even me copying you, I'm not copying you, I'm copying the way that you've approached it. That cookie cutter thing is just gross. And I'll be honest, I kind of like the fact that I'm really not the cool kid in football. Like I tweet stuff and nobody cares. Whereas baseball, like if I say stuff, I have to be careful not to be arrogant, but I can move the needle. It's true. People are paying attention to my stuff when it comes to baseball on a real level. And football, nobody cares. So I just watch this stuff, and I'm like, God, I love the fact that I truly feel like the market makes people worse at fantasy football. Like the general market, like if you're just on the surface stuff, you're actively getting worse. We're going to talk about some of it now, although I was supposed to circle through 100%. 100% share, guys. Maybe we'll get to guys that we love a little bit later on. I want to get into this natural segue of calling BS on the market because we're here to overreact. So first things first, it's training camp. I know in baseball, again, not to keep bringing it up, but year after year, guys, I get stung. I put in tons and tons of work building this mountain, doing this sculpture, and then spring training starts, and I throw it away sometimes for but things that other smart people are doing too. Spikes in velocity, things that are supposed to matter, playing time. This guy's batting first, and oftentimes you throw it away. I find this is where I'm going. I find in football, because I'm so busy with baseball, I'm not really watching preseason stuff, and unless it's injuries that tend to cause time missed, I almost don't care. Talk to me about preseason, Scotty. Lead it off. How do you digest it? Do you watch it a lot? Do you care about it? What do you wait? Just go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I read the camp reports. I think the biggest thing that I can offer in terms of what I pay attention to and what I don't pay attention to is I don't pay attention to beat writers' thoughts. Like, so if a beat writer says, well, I think there was a big report earlier this year that you saw, John, that was a little bit before training camp, that Rashad Penny's going to get 20 carries a game.
Oh, yeah, guaranteed.
And this was a beat writer, and this was, and I had people asking me about this on my Fantasy Pro stages about, well, he just said he's going to get 20 carries a game. And I said, no, they did not. No, one beat writer suggested that maybe it's possible that Rashad Penny gets 20 carries a game. If he gets 20 carries a game, he'll hit his career high in carries week 6 because 119 last year is the most carries he's ever had. So, I think those opinions, those roster bubble things, but I think what you do want to pay attention to is what guys are doing in practice specifically. Are they practicing? Are they getting any first team reps? I think that is, it's not everything. A lot of teams just want to install the new offense. Specifically, you saw, the first 6 days of Broncos camp, Javonte, all number 1 reps. Melvin Gordon got none of them. Then the next 4 or 5 days, Melvin Gordon gets all the first team reps. And that's because you have a new coach in there, new offensive style, installing a new system. So you want to get these guys familiar with everything and working with the ones. So there's the little differences there. But we hear about Isaiah Pacheco getting reps, not only getting reps with the ones, but getting reps over Ronald Jones, getting reps over Jerick McKinnon, things like that. I like to see what's going on with the O-line. I like to see what's going on with, the rotations and things like that, where guys are practicing, what it looks like is going to happen with the depth chart. It's not always a 1-for-1, but, the 2 biggest ones that we've had this offseason here are Antonio Gibson and David Montgomery just losing touches, and not only losing touches and not practicing with the first team, but both these guys getting reps on special teams. That is not a good look.
That's unusual
for either one of those dudes. So I still believe in them, and I still have them higher than their counterparts. I still have Gibson ahead of Brian Robinson. I still have Montgomery slightly ahead of Khalil Herbert, which that one is I'm actually a little more shaky on than I am Antonio Gibson. But these are things you do have to take into account. First team, second team reps not as big as these guys practicing on special teams. It's not a good thing.
How about you, Scott? That was really awesome. That was better. You did a better job answering than I did asking. So, Chris, same idea. How about something that you don't pay attention to, you're trying to avoid, and something that you think is important? That was really great. I think I really agree with you. I know I have fallen for. Sometimes it's not our fault. The way they frame those reports is they make it seem like it's a direct quote. And like you said, if you're
looking for clicks too, that's the whole thing, John. Right? They're looking for clicks too.
Those guys. So, Chris, take it away on training camp and your reaction. The floor is all yours.
I'd say 2 things. It's the first one. It's to what Bogman said, and I think I would just sum it up to being like, I don't care beat writer speculation. Beat writer speculation is the most unimportant thing on the planet.
Hold on, what if they work for The Athletic? I always laugh at that one. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't care where they work. I don't like
I just
what
always laugh at that one.
What a beat writer.
The Athletic. I'm like, I work for The Athletic. They obviously have very low standards.
And they should be like, well, let me tell you that this could happen. I don't care about speculation. But you know what? I know another one that has actually been kind of new. I kind of don't care about this huge echo chamber of fantasy analyst breakdown of training camp as well. Like, here's an example. Dameon Pierce doesn't play in this last game, and every analyst goes out, Dameon Pierce, this they've like upheavaled his value into they're screaming at that. You would think Dameon Pierce is a second round pick, and I love him, by the way, and I've got him really high.
Isn't it rightfully so? That's what I'm saying. I'm part of. I feel like I'm part of this. Maybe I'm part of the donkeys. That's what we're here for.
But I'm just saying. I think it's the loudness of all of it. Like, I want to tune out all of the things. You know what I like to do? I like to see guys make plays in preseason, in exhibition and preseason, like Romeo Dubs Pickens, Romeo Dubs. Those guys, they look really good. You want to know another sneaky one? Danny Gray seems to really look good and makes plays and flies down with the 49ers. I don't know if he could oversee Juwan Jennings for number 3, but Danny Gray and Trey Lance have a thing. I like those things. And I know they're tied in because then people have to go on and they have to spout it. But kind of in my joking stance of like these threaded tweets that are going on, I think it's actually making preseason football more annoying and more obnoxious. If a guy doesn't play, you have to have him now because he didn't play, because now the team thinks he's this. So again, I know this is like a little bit of a different answer. Like, at the end of the day, preseason is preseason. Like, it's all overreaction. Beat writers say ridiculous things. I actually think there is more tangible things coming out of preseason football this year than maybe in previous years, like special teams, David Montgomery, Antonio Gibson, weirdness coming out of that. I think that his the rookies and the opportunities maybe early on, those things have really kind of jumped up and we're getting lots of information. But at the end of the day, I think the speculation of these incredible things that can happen from beat writers or from check marks mean less than me than ever before. And really, it would be almost be like just muting all of the noise during these exhibition games and just, catch a few of the things, watch a few of the games. Pickens, Dubs, they stand out. Dameon Pierce looked fantastic, but are we anointed? This is weird because I love Dameon Pierce. I was drafting him even before that game happened, Boggs knows, but like, we now at a point where
put it into context. Yeah, this isn't Dameon Pierce. Yeah. This isn't Dameon Pierce getting first team run with the Rams. He's getting first team run with the Texans, who are still a bad offense. They're still going to be losing in the fourth quarter. Still going to have to throw it then. And Pierce is probably going to be on the field less than, and Rex Burkhead is going to be on the field more in the late third, early fourth, because they're playing comeback, and you don't want a rookie protecting your quarterback, right? So like, take it with a grain of salt. Dameon Pierce is a great running back and he looks good, but what does that mean in the long term? Are you putting Dameon Pierce ahead of, how high can he go? Are you put him ahead of AJ Dillon? Does he go ahead of Kareem Hunt and Kenneth Walker and guys like that? I don't know. Probably not for me. So it's a good point the Welsh is making here. Like, Dameon Pierce looks great. We're saying all the right things about him. He's still a rookie running back on a bad offense. So when you boil it down to the last thing.
Well, hold on. You know what? We got a little bit ahead, but it's actually a perfect segue. I wanted to build off of what we mentioned about the things not to overreact to or to pay attention to, and actually apply them to some of the names. One of the names on the list was third. We just made him first now, is Dameon Pierce. So, Scott, you really kind of dug in, which is great. Chris, was there anything that you wanted to get to regarding Pierce before? I want to ask you now, because that's what people want. And or at least I do. Like, I'm really, really selfish. And I think people like that about my content, because again, I don't just analyze, like, I play these things, and listen,
put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah. I want to do one more. Let's do a quick one now about this, applying all this stuff to actually getting in the arena. And I was taking a lot of lumps coming into baseball season again, saying that I thought the projections on Underdog, the were broken. I thought the best ball projections were broken on the site. Like, I worked very closely with Derek Carty, and I thought the projections just were broken. Everyone said no, and everyone drafted to the projections, and I kind of did it my own. And
were
even
underdogs
in the draft,
the bad X? Was it
even
because you said you worked with Carty? Was the underdog?
Because dude, you got to remember, you go on a site, they have their own projections. If you have and this is a good application for everybody. If you have better projections than the site projections, use your own projections, and you may find they're really disparate from what's being given to you. And what turned out,
so you were comparing the bad X to
right.
Rose.
I wasn't understanding what you were saying. How you said that.
But
so
now
you mean you were
for
comparing
football
the bad X,
right? But now you could use it for football also, and this is part of the exercise I was doing at the Athletic with Jake's projections. I don't do my own football projections, but Jake's does. They're very prominent. So I took them and plotted them against ECR, and I did the same thing with Derek. But the lesson was this. People were kind of getting at me, give me run, or you're clickbaity again, you're looking for interactions and stuff. I put nearly 20% of all entries in the finals. This is the finals. I have 20% of my entries are in the underdog finals. Okay, people, for bucking the system, for doing exactly what I'm doing now, telling everybody who's much smarter than me with way more experience that I think I have an edge and I'm going to pursue it. Okay, so I know it was a little bit of a tangent, but again, I put my money where my mouth is. I'm looking to win myself. I did like 8 drafts already this morning. I have done well over 150 best ball drafts. Like, I am a maniac. I almost won. I almost won a big national competition for the NFL playoffs. Same idea. It wasn't working anywhere. I knew that I had an edge. I had blanketed every single contest on drafters. I just didn't get it done because I didn't get anything from, oh my gosh, the third guy on LA last year. Anyway. All right, people. So again, dare the market, go up against them. All the stuff that these guys are saying is legit. Yes, everybody's like, oh, okay, let's do the names. Okay, again, let's just stop and do the names because it drives me nuts, man. It drives me nuts. People drove up Pierce. I'm buying Pierce. Bogman gives a good issue for both of them. We're going to get to where we slot it. So, Chris, just real quick on Pierce. You're like half buying it. I feel like we cut you off because now we're really getting into them because this is what people are going to be here for. These names that are moving and how to react to them. So
I'm not in that. I'm more getting to a bigger point of the echo chamber of people propping up. You use a word like clickbaity. I think there's a lot of, it's hot take. It's a hot take culture. Like Dameon Pierce is awesome. I like Dameon Pierce before he was going 9 yards per carry in his first preseason game. What people are now doing though, is you've taken, okay, this is because Bogman's point is super important here. At the end of the day, there's 2 sides to this. There is a role. And I know there are some people out there that poo-poo the idea of opportunity, which I think is stupid. Like, opportunity is absolutely an important thing. And people are like, well, no, it is important. Opportunity gets you in that first step. But also, it's garbage offense. So keep that relative.
What if they're good? That's been my pushback. What if the Texans aren't that bad?
If and buts was candies and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas.
Come on, hold on. No, there's more to that than that. Davis Mills, I think, is the best bet.
But they're going to be improved, John. I'll agree with you on that. But there's still going to be a bottom.
That's not really my point, though. My point has.
But it should be. It shouldn't be the point because opportunity has to be weighed with the quality of those opportunities.
Yeah, I'm not discounting him though based on the offense. I'm just saying it's not a good offense. If it's a better offense, it's still a bottom third offense. If it's not the worst offense,
bottom. Yes. I'm sorry.
Okay, so that's not really
3. I don't think of them as the trash can.
Yeah, we both like Pierce, by the way. It's just the hype is insane.
Yes,
right
my whole
I got him as an RB3. I think Welsh does too, right?
I do.
In that range. There's people that are putting him up into the RB2 range, high RB3 range. We're just not there. That's
what I'm saying. Where are you, Chris? Where do you draw the line?
Let me finish this real quick. I can't get this out of we're all like big personalities here. I cannot get my thought out here. What I'm trying to say is 9 yards per carry, fantastic. He's got the opportunity early on. The problem that happened then is because into the second game, they don't play him because they say we saw a lot of what we wanted to see in him. And what did they do? They then played Marlon Mack and Rex Burkhead. But what people are taking is Dameon Pierce, the number 1 job. It's here. Now we got to move him from 3 to 2. It's hot take season. I got to be the number 1 guy that has him the highest on Fantasy Pros ranker. I got to win the consensus rank. I think there is so much of a culture online, and this is to the people that pay attention to like a lot of online stuff. If you don't, you just listen to the podcast, you lock into like one person, like Jake or whoever, I think you're golden, is that ranks in many ways are done to be the highest and the most accurate at the end of the day. There are so many people, I've seen it in baseball and I've seen it on Fantasy Pros, and I think it happens with football, where the application of how someone drafts is not necessarily how they will rank sometimes. And what you hear out of a guy like Dameon Pierce, you would think you are going to be getting a top 20 back out of the chute. Maybe at the end of the season, it will work in that respect. But kind of like what you said with Kenneth Walker and Penny and stuff like that. Like, I think Walker, when all the numbers spew out at the end, is going to be great. But he might be a dud for you for the first 2 weeks. Then he might come in and he might be in a minimal role, slow start. And then 5 or 6, you would come in. It's kind of the same thing with Dameon Pierce. So that's kind of my take on it. Where does he go?
That's what, because that's really the answer here is all that stuff is great. And we're getting around the target, but then it's where does he go? Because when you look at ADP itself, you say like RB3.
He should be your first RB3. Like that's what Dameon Pierce is. That's what Walker is. That's what a lot of these rookie backs are, John, is they should be your third back.
So hold on,
you have your first 2 backs. You got your first 2 backs. Sorry, say again.
So like Pat, I'm looking at it now, and I think you're spot on. RB3 ends with like Ramondre, Cordarrelle, and Dameon Pierce is right there right now. But there are definitely names in front of him. I don't know if I like those. Guy like Devin Singletary.
And that's okay. But here's the deal, John. Here's the deal. Like, so if I have guys ranked ahead of him that I will take him over if he's my third back. You know what I mean? But if I wait on backs, if I drafted maybe a premium tight end, a premium quarterback, and I don't have my second back, I'm not relying on Pierce as my RB2. I'll take one of those other guys that I have ahead of him on a good offense. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I have ahead of him. We saw Cordero Patterson do it last year. I have him a little bit ahead. Yeah. Guys that I don't particularly like, but they have that high floor, whereas any rookie back, even Pierce, has a high ceiling, but a low floor. You fumble twice and you're out. Remember, we were doing this with Trey Sermon all year, all preseason last year. Yep. We get to week 1, he's benched. We did it with Zach Moss last year. He's benched. These guys don't get a helmet. So that is how quick rookies can still go into the doghouse if you do some things wrong in practice, you fumble during the game, that kind of thing. So as my upside RB3, that is where I want Pierce.
Yeah, I think that's a really great spot for him. Right. That's a really good spot for him. I would only prioritize him above the very few backs that are not catching passes in front of him. I tend to think he's going to have a load on week 1. I also think we are going to see the Twitter Rex Burkhead overreaction. That's the most obvious overreaction ever when he scores a touchdown or 2, right? Because that's what he does. Like that's
when
he
has
does.
7 carries for 2 touchdowns and 2 catches, and
yeah, right. Does. Okay, so how about the next one? This is great. And I think people want this because that's what I want, because there's a lot of this. The prices are moving so fast on these players that I'm telling you, I really think
it's hard to catch up.
But discussion focused around them and how to get to the answer, I think, is really the most important one. Now let's go to the top of that list. Everybody's favorite. Oh, but I guess I keep calling him rookie. I know technically he's not rookie. I have baseball in the brain now. Like, you have to achieve it. I know Trey Lance played a couple games last year. I am a quarterback kind of guy. I understand he has a rushing floor. I know we've seen a million rookie quarterbacks that were going to be great, holding headsets for the rest of their life, man. So I tend to not try and pay a premium for rookie quarterbacks. I think it's very difficult. I don't know, man. I guess they believe in him because they let Jimmy go, and Jimmy probably could have managed this team to a winning record, which I guess wasn't good enough for them. So Lance is that guy that I have no shares of, but I want, but I can't have them because they're way too expensive for me. He's going in front of pieces that I just can't give up on. And it's really a lot of hope. Like, okay, I think we should all admit
like
that.
Who?
Well, Lance is.
Ninth and 10th quarterbacks are usually not someone that's too costly.
It's not quarterback at that point. I'm off quarterbacks. It's the other talent. It'd be the other talent on the board itself. You know what I mean?
No, I know what you're saying, but I'm saying like the 9th or 10th quarterback is going so low. What is the guy? Who are the guys that you're like, well, I cannot take Trey Lance here because. Who? Like James?
But maybe
Cook,
we're in different draft. Lance goes. Lance has been going right after the runners, right after the Hurts, Murray.
I haven't seen it.
I'm going to give you some news that's going to make you hate me, John. I just took Trey Lance in the second round of a Superflex draft.
Well, Superflex is weird. I could see that rushing floor. You need QBs. That's a little bit different. No, hold on. Let's get him in right now, dude. His min pick in the last 2 months is 31 overall. Trey Lance. He's going.
What draft are you talking in best balls?
Well, I'm looking at NFB. I'm looking at NFC right now because I feel like that's a. Okay. So I know they have a tendency to push up. But I'm also doing best balls, and dude, he's just going really early.
So this is you're actually bringing up something that's super important. It's the context of how and what you play. I just did this with somebody, and they were talking to me in a way that it was points, and it's like, well, buddy, not everybody plays points. I have to say this to you too, John. Not everybody is playing in FFC. Not everybody is thinking in just best ball, and quarterbacks in best ball work so different. Fantasy Pros ADP on Trey Lance is 100 right now. And that is an aggregate across multiple sites. That's using Sleeper, which is going around 105.
So do you have this in order, or are you just looking at Trey Lance?
Me?
Yes.
I have it in order.
Okay, so who are give me some position players that are in that
and this is what's important, because John, if you're telling me and you're talking to me that Trey Lance is going in the 30s, preach it up, because that's ridiculous. We've never There's no effing way I'm taking him if he's in the 30s. I might not take Josh Allen in the 30s. So but I'm talking in my buddies leagues where I'm doing a 12 team. I'm doing like that. You're talking in a bigger high dollar best. Like as soon as you said like he's going
NFFC, really high, NFBC, that's all upside. Everything.
As soon as he said that, I was like, you got to be talking about best ball in that platform, and not everybody works into that same space. And what's really funny about that is it happens to baseball too. How like best ball and high dollar leagues affect consumer leagues are hilarious. And they're very different. And I think it is important to distinguish those because, John, like you can now see why I was confused. If you say he's going in the 30s, Trey Lance is 100.
Let me cut you off. Let me ask you, now that we kind of got that out of the way, because you're 100% right, and I think get your Lance when he's cheap, that's done. What do you expect from him? What do you guys expect from him?
I expect 600 to 700 yards rushing. I've talked a lot about this. He averaged I went on to, I think it was PFF and Fantasy Pros, projections around 30 yards per game rushing. In his game started last year, he averaged 60. I just cut it in half just for funsies here, just to say, okay, let's say it's in the middle of both those. It'd be 45 yards per game. It's over 700 yards rushing. He averaged over 220 yards passing last year. Projections have him under that. If we give him any progression, you're going to be probably over 3,500 yards. Jimmy Garoppolo's garbage. And you say like, yeah, he could get them to a winning record, but 9-8 is not great.
That's it though. No,
go for it. Yeah. So, but am I worried about Trey Lance? Yeah, I think some of his decision making is a little bit questionable, but he's got incredible talent around him. So my expectations is similar to, and I know this is a super stupid thing, but it's like it is similar to Jalen Hurts, like in how it was last year. I think there'll be more innovative play calls with the Niners than it was with the Eagles. I think they will sling the ball out, and guess what? The Niners have 3 completely different type of awesome playmakers in their core. You've got Deebo Samuel, who is the most prolific tackle breaker and yards after the catch receiver in the NFL right now. Yeah. You've got a deep threat option in Brandon Ayuk, who has taken a next step. And you've got a guy, if you haven't already separated the field deep and separated on the inside, you got George Kittle freely to do whatever he is. So all you are balanced on with Trey Lance is figuring out, can he be an accurate passer? And if the accuracy is there, you're going to find the weapons. Plus, I wouldn't even be shocked if he was the leader in rushing, even though I think of Elijah Mitchell really high. So my expectations is similar to what we got from Jalen Hurts last year, maybe with even a little bit more upside because of the offense and divisionally, I think, of where they're playing. So I say all of this to say I've got Trey Lance at 9 on my QBs, but it is not in the 30s. So I have high expectations of him. I agree with what you're saying as far as like how rookie quarterbacks are, but this is completely different. He learned the offense for an entire year, plus got application. You've got your running backs. You've got all your guys healthy. Your core is back, and they have built around him for more than 12 months. So I'm a Trey Lance guy. I'm not trying to defend him crazily, but if it were in the 30s, I agree. I would not want to take that risk in the top 40 on one of those guys. I would rather pay the price on Jalen Hurts. But when he's around 100 and I see the players around him as Melvin Gordon and Robert Woods and Michael Carter on Fantasy Pros ADP for PPR leagues, I look at that and I go, well, Trey Lance all day, every day. But if it was around, I have to decide between Trey Lance and Kyle Pitts or Trey Lance and Terry McLaurin. Yeah, get the hell out of here, dude.
All right, Scotty. Now, same thing. What your expectations for Lance? I want to tackle on one thing because this is something now that I'm thinking about. Them like Jimmy G going. They're going to go down with the ship with this kid. Like, what if he stinks?
Well, they already traded 3 first-round picks for him. So, like,
but they're ready to win, though. So what? I mean, hold on, seriously, we're talking Owen. I don't think this is the case, but we're talking 0-4. That's like they don't even have a Flacco behind him. So
look, man, I've said this a bunch of times, and I've heard it on PFF podcast too. I think they should keep Jimmy G, but it splits the locker room if you do that.
They won't either. I agree.
You can't. You can't. Like, I think the best strategic move for your team is to keep him, but it splits the locker room because, like you said, if he does start 0-4, there's going to be guys going, we just got to the NFC Championship with Jimmy.
Yeah,
put him back in there. So you can't have him around. He's got to go.
So do you think he's going to be good, though? Do you think Lance will be good for us?
I do. I really do. I was a little questionable about it. I'll say this for fantasy. He's going to be frustrating because he's going to have weeks where he wins you the week, where he just looks incredible. He's going to have other weeks where a defense gets to him. He feels the pressure, and he's got happy feet. He's a first-year starter. Like you said, John, you don't like to draft rookie QBs. That's very understandable. But first-year starters are tough, and it's going to be tough on him. He will win you weeks. He will also lose you weeks. He's going to be a very high ceiling and low floor player. That's what he's going to be. I love him in a super flex as my RB2 because I want to take that swing. I want to take that risk.
QB2.
I want to get QB2. Yeah. I want to take my, standard. I took Lamar in death match that I'm doing with Gary Davenport right now. I took Lamar first in the super flex, and then I took Trey Lance in the second round because I've got all the rushing upside now. I've got all the upside every single week on that team. So that should be a fun way to roster it. But like the Welsh said, I think the projections from, what Jalen Hurts did last season are pretty good. And they have, a much better running game than the Eagles. So RPOs are going to work better for him. So as long as he can throw it downfield and not turn the ball over 2-3 times a game, he's going to be great and he's going to stick. And, he's really going to be a value where he's going right now, I think.
Yeah. I mean, if he could run for 700 yards, it's going to be a QB1. That's just what it is. We saw Jalen Hurts again. I watched every snap of every game last year. It was kind of my claim to fame while I was getting back into understanding football again. Jalen Hurts put on some of the worst passing performances I've seen in a very long time. And again, he's not that bad. The downside of a young QB, it's whatever. It's like all professional sports.
He's a better fantasy player than real life player.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is,
the play calling was such garbage in Philly.
Agreed.
I kept spouting about that. I spouted about that so much last year. I'd be like,
nobody was getting open for them.
First half, Rieger was dropping balls.
First half, Eagles were one of the worst things to watch. And then when they would get behind and they'd come back, and Jalen Hurts just got to open up, he would get to go. But yeah, I agree with Boggs. I think it said it really well. Like there's risk. There's risk in there. He's going to have some real big dud weeks. He doesn't represent the floor, but he does have a floor from the yards on the running back side. Like the one thing I can't get over, like even you just said, you're like, hey, if he runs for 700 yards, he's an RB. He's a QB1 easy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's projected at over 500 right now, and that's only 30 yards per game. I mean, do we really think? I mean, this is a run-heavy quarterback that team is going to implement RPOs. We really think he's going to rush for less than 30 yards a game? I don't think. He rushed for 60 as a starter last year in those opportunities. I mean, that's what, if you want to talk about bets, by the way, one of my favorite bets that has been taken off of a couple books was the Trey Lance rushing yard prop. It's set at 500. It was saying 500. It's not there. I can't find it anymore. Maybe it came back on DK. It left from FanDuel, but 500 rushing yards is a money play that I want to jump on.
All right, let's get the next name. Let's overreact to the next name. Everybody's favorite backup on the planet Earth. It's Tony Pollard for the Cowboys, America's team. Again, sometimes this analysis just seems very easy for me. Again, it's a really good football player and a really good real football team that just doesn't care about our fantasy squads. And I don't think we're going to get any of the, wish casting that people are hoping for, which would either be supplanting Zeke, which while he's healthy to me is not going to happen, which is going to be him slotting out constantly, which again, call me Missouri. I got to see it first. I'm also not spending a 7th round pick on that. What are we hoping for, like a Danny Woodhead kind of reclamation thing going on here? Pollard's clearly the more explosive player. Zeke is still good, and he's healthy. He's going to get the rock. He's the number one jersey seller. They can't stop and talk about him constantly about how he's featured. There's a really good chance, gentlemen, for me at least, Pollard is just what you get. You're going to get some games where you quite literally get nothing, right? You're going to get whatever backups do sometimes, which, again, could be close. Not literal zeros, but, all right, we have the log here. Games with Zeke, 3 rushes for 14, 4 catches for 29. You can't draft a guy in the 7th round that might score 6 points week 1 to me. So, Bog, you lead off this one. Tony Pollard, we know he's talented, so we're not caring about that.
Sure.
Are the pathways to this price legit? I think that's the question.
Look, I've got him as a high-end RB4, so I've got him at 37. I have him as my number 1 RB4. I got him below Michael Carter. I've got him below Dameon Pierce. I got him below Devin Singletary. Not a lot of guys that I actually love, but I think this is where he should be going. I think because you see the Cowboys offense is good, that people don't believe in Zeke, that he gets this push up into, middle RB3, early RB3 territory. I do think that there is a possibility that Pollard is a better back than Zeke right now. I do think that that's a possibility, but the Cowboys don't. So unless Zeke goes out there and falls flat on his face, which, people forget, Zeke played with a partially torn PCL in his knee all year last year. And so when he looked slower, he didn't look as explosive. He was dealing with that. So is he going to come back and be Ohio State Zeke that leads them to the national title game? No.
I don't think so.
But is he going to come back and get more carries than Pollard and take the bigger chunk of the workload, probably closer to 2/3 than half? Yeah, I think so. So Pollard needs to make plays in snatches. And if that's the case, if that's the case, then I want a guy that's going to average around 10 touches as my RB4, not as my RB3, not as my RB2.
Yeah.
So I just can't do it with Pollard and the way that people are inflating his value.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Now, I wonder, Chris, before you go, I wonder if you agree with this. Right, we often talk about usage, split work, and I think we kind of see these more definitive pieces of the pie happening. A lot of times people call it between the 20s. I like to think of it as kind of early down rushing, the passing down work, and then kind of inside the 20s, right? The critical kind of red zone stuff. Zeke is the goal line guy in the goal line, right? Zeke is the goal line guy. Zeke is the early down guy. And I don't think he's much of the pass work guy, right? So that leaves Pollard as what feels like a standard RB2.
Still a good option,
right? Yeah, which can be good, but not in a 7th round pick. So, Chris, talk to us about, Pollard, the use, but also how he fits into your draft plan, and if you think he could pay off a 7th round draft pick without an injured Zeke, right? I think we should have mentioned that. An injured Zeke puts Pollard at the top.
Yeah. I think you guys said it pretty well. Like one of the guys, we talked about him earlier, one of the guys, I had Pollard kind of early on a little bit higher. Just because of my concerns with Zeke, but like a guy that should be drafted over Pollard at this point, based on everything you said, is probably Chase Edmonds. Like Mike McDaniel in the offense. I think Raheem Mostert is still being kind of undervalued for people, just forgetting that, McDaniel has complete comfortability with Raheem and Raheem knows the offense. But Chase Edmonds is kind of an every down guy, the passing guy. They're going to be heavy with McDaniel in the
first guy they signed too.
The first guy they signed, but like Edmonds should be a guy we go over Pollard with, and that's not necessarily the case. Maybe not everywhere, but definitely, if again, just citing some public stuff here, if you want to know like the Fantasy Pros ADPs on the the rankings and versus the ADPs, we had where the hell did it go? Tony Pollard is 30th and Chase Edmonds is the 33rd running back. I don't think Edmonds over him at this point, but I will say that the Cowboys are not afraid to give both of these guys double-digit carries. I mean, they did it 5 straight weeks early on in the year. Pollard is I think the one difference in it, what you talk about, if you're trying to build up, like, who are these guys? It's like, well, Elliott is early, Elliott is goal line, and Pollard is just the receiving third down back if you pigeonhole it like that. The only problem with that is there's also series. I've seen the Cowboys have done in series where Tony Pollard will run the series. He's a change of pace guy. And Tony Pollard is explosive. I actually think, like, to the slightest degree, Tony Pollard might be like a just better back to have than Ezekiel Elliott.
He could be.
deficiencies in Elliott. I think Pollard is explosive on the field, especially when they put him out in receiving. He can break away. He's a double-digit carry guy, but I don't.
He also doesn't have the beating that Zeke has taken on his body.
Exactly.
Yet,
they never give him 20 carries, so I think he is limited. So to be drafting him as like a low or high, however you want to consider it, RB3, I think it's a little bit questionable. But he's going to get his run. That's the thing I like about him. He's going to get 10 to 14 touches. There are going to be games where he's going to pace out Elliott. It's just going to happen. I mean, and Elliott also, if he starts to struggle, he seems to wear down on the back half of games. They'll go to Pollard a little bit more. So I think I like Pollard a little bit more than normal, but I think it's like of the low RB3s. If Edmonds was gone, actually Bogman, I like James Robinson a whole lot this year. If Kareem Hunt, Damian Pierce, if those guys are gone, I would put him in Pollard in that same like Devin Singletary, Melvin Gordon, that type of territory.
Yeah, I think Pollard's going to drive redraft owners bananas if he comes out averaging 12 touches a game like we've just seen. I mean, this happens a lot. And again, maybe it's weird how this is kind of my unique thing for football is we see a lot of this wish casting of forward steps and playbook changes. And a lot of times you just get what you get is what you did. You know what I mean? It's just what it is. We project these things, our fantasy dreams on these teams. And a lot of times I think that's false. Let's get into the hottest name. Has to be the hottest name of the offseason. I'm loving this one. It's Isaiah Pacheco on the Chiefs. I've been loving this one. See, there were times, it's funny because I am like a known cheapskate. I was drafting him in every single league, doing maybe 6 or 8 drafts a day. As soon as he popped up as a potential, that's how you get on 20-round picks. I know from being a large-scale basketball player, a lot of times those picks do get burned. I had 1 million shares of Quadri Allison last year. Oh, I'm so sharp. So again, you're right. At the time, it seemed like it might have been sharp behind Mike Davis or whatever, and those shares were worthless. Even with the opportunity, they're worthless. So I have no problem jumping at those shares in the 18th, 19th, and 20 rounds of late baseball leagues. Because I feel like, again, I mentioned it before, having the outs. Dwayne McFarland talks about it on PFF, but he's right. You need pathways to success. The chief pass catching back in a backfield that really doesn't have an alpha in it is a good way to get it. Then to the things you guys mentioned, which that's why I was really hoping the show would mature into itself. Like you guys mentioned, the usage and like Scott said before, with the first team and in the goal line, and Pacheco was getting first team red zone work where he caught a play designed just for him. And it's like, man, I saw that and I was like, all right, here we go. Now I'm ready forget the 20th round. Now I went from 20th to 18th to 16th to 13th. I was like gladly drafting him in the 13th when I started pumping the brakes.
Welsh just took him in the 11th of our mock.
Okay. This is gonna be great. So Chris, you're gonna lead off this one, Pacheco. I'm quite done almost. I personally pulled the brakes there because I felt like there were just better options. However, on teams where I didn't get early running backs and I have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, there's almost nowhere I wouldn't take Pacheco as I was thinking about it. When you have that, like, oh my God, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is my running back one. This team is sunk. This is the dead cash situation. So what do you have to do? You just start, you take every pathway to success that you might get massing, running back picks. I don't know if it's going to happen, but that's what I got. So Chris, what do you think, man? How set up for failure over here? Talk to us about Pacheco.
I mean, I definitely think there is some built in. He's a very big, he's going to be the scope of training camp, preseason, hype versus production. He's going to be the marker where we're like, can you believe we did this again? Because if it fails, because I don't believe there's a scenario and I think I'm a little bit on an island here. I just don't see where Clyde Edwards-Helaire just goes poof. I think, and everybody we talk to is poofing him out. They're snapping him where he's gone and he doesn't exist anymore. That's not going to happen. Andy Reid still loves this guy. They still like the guy. He's going to be a part of the offense. Ronald Jones looks like he's going to get cut. Jerick McKinnon, he exists. Derek Gore exists. What you like about Pacheco is that he's a full service back. Pass protection is so key. You can catch the ball. Looks pretty explosive out there. Opportunities will be there. But everything that you said about when we're talking about Tony Pollard or some of these other guys, that's the same thing I see. So the scenario Bogman said where I took him in the 11th, that was that league we were talking about, the multi-flex. I screwed the pooch with running backs. Yeah. I think I took a decent tight end.
Rashad Penny. It was Najee and that was the
Najee Harris
Penny.
Was my first pick. Yeah, and I took Penny. And then my next 3 picks were like, I just missed on Dameon Pierce. I took like Isaiah Spiller, Pacheco, and I think Zamir White, I think was like the build of young upside potential. So I prioritized him a little bit higher because the thing I love the most about it is if something were to happen to Allaire, which by the way, has happened before, he can be an every down back where I don't really believe they would give that to Jerick McKinnon at this point. Derek Gore is not that. Pacheco can be an every down back. The problem is, so that's the path. If you're talking about what's the pathway, well, this is a guy that can do absolutely everything, probably is going to slot himself. Everyone's going to freak out, by the way, when Jerick McKinnon is like the number 2 on the depth chart.
And Jerick McKinnon. Yes.
Yeah. Everyone's going to lose their mind when that happens week 1. But Pacheco's the guy that can be a bit of everything. So if Allaire were to go down, he would jump into that. So I think there's a path. And I want that type of upside. And kind of like we talked about with Dameon Pierce and then before, listen, when you get your top 2 guys, I prefer to have a good 3. After that, I'm not going to be looking like, man, I got to get Alexander Mattison because if David Cook, I don't want that. I want the upside plays. Yes, if Cook were to go down, Mattison becomes an instant blah, blah, blah. He's amazing and stuff. But I'm looking for a guy that doesn't have a path just due to injury, but that could be able to take that over or have continuous production. So you start to look at like the Herberts, the Gainwells, the James Cook. I think the Buffalo situation is a little too ridiculous. And everybody is anointed Devin Singletary, but now you're getting a lot of, hey, this might be a 3-horse race throughout the year. And James Cook is super talented and could take that over. So I want those rookie upside, Tyrion Davis-Price, Isaiah Spiller, Pacheco. That is like prime RB4 territory. So once you get to the 40s, and I don't know what that necessarily equates to in drafts. Yeah, Pacheco is absolutely the guy. Of all those running backs, by the way, we mentioned, he might be the best every down back that can pass block, catch, can hit his holes, and has already built in trust. I don't think Spiller has that. Cook doesn't have that. Tyrion Davis-Price doesn't have that. None of those guys have that. Pacheco does on an incredible offense. So that's why you prioritize. But to put all of your dreams and hopes that he is going to be one of your starting running backs or something like that, that's where you have to back check. And we all should like take a little bit of breath when we're filling in our backup running backs and making sure we're not, again, going into that echo chamber and being like, well, Isaiah Pacheco, he looks really good. He might be the guy. I'm taking him at RB30. I'm going to just take him RB30. Nah, I'm not into that. I think the Clyde Edwards-Helaire death is a little premature at this point.
Yeah, his demise has been greatly exaggerated. No, I think you're right. I also, as a speculator, both in fantasy sports and real life, I can't help but ignore the thing you mentioned is not just a pathway, people. It's a pathway to the nut hand, right? So this isn't just like being an every down back on Houston. This is being the every down back in the greatest spot. I mean, Andy Reid churned out not just a running back 1, but like the running back 1 for like 6 of 7 years in a row.
Brian Westbrook.
So, his system is geared for that. Pacheco kind of fixed the archetype, so that's kind of why I had a fantasy owner. Anyway,
the reason that Pacheco is so interesting is because Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jerick McKinnon, and Ronald Jones
they're
are
so
not
vanilla.
That is why Pacheco is so interesting, because they don't have much there. Pacheco could come in and be the number 1 back, and I don't think people would be shocked by it. I have him in the 50s still. I just think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is still Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I don't think he's, like Welsh said, he's not going away. There are times where you see a third year in the NFL, a guy take that step, and his rookie year being the COVID year and all that stuff. It's just interesting to see Clyde Edwards-Helaire sink so low because he hasn't been good. I thought he was going to be good coming out. I wasn't super hype train. I wasn't putting him in the first round and even in the second round when he came out, just because he went to the Chiefs. But this offense is great, and they need performers. Tyreek Hill is gone. They lost a lot of wideouts too. Byron Pringle was a big part. Demarcus Robinson was a big part. So there's a lot of opportunity in the entirety of this offense behind Kelsey. Kelsey is your number 1 target. After that, it's a question mark. Could be Juju, it could be Sky Moore, it could be Pacheco, it could be Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We don't know. So that's why you just want a piece of that pie somewhere. Whether it's Juju, whether it's Pacheco, whether it's Sky Moore, if you like Hardman or MVS or whoever, you just got to find the piece that you like and take it. So like you said, because you're working your way to the nut hand, right, John?
Yeah, that's got to be
you're working your way towards.
I think it sounds funny because it's intuitive, and again, we have a lot of experience, so it comes kind of second nature. But people, that really has got to be at the center of it. It's not just if there is like a pathway. People become so obsessed with the opportunity, like Chris mentioned before. Opportunities matter, but not just outright. We can't just take anything on its face. There are quality, and the potential quality there is everything. I want to get into the next one here. It's Romeo Dobbs, another one of the Twitter darlings, but camp darlings. He's making the plays like you guys mentioned. He's on the field like you guys mentioned, running with the ones like you guys mentioned. I wanted to get to the one thing we hadn't mentioned that really matters here. It's the void that has to be filled with Devontae Adams leaving. Since Devontae left the Packers, there's been a sucking sound for all the targets that need to be mopped up. I mean, literally talk about, and it's funny, I took what was supposed to be like a clever analogy and kind of expanded on it. I think it works, right? People talk about a target tree, but it makes sense. So if it was a real tree, I talk about the Dolphins would be a bonsai tree, this short little stumpy thing with branches everywhere, because that's how they operate. And the Packers are the Seneca redwood. It's a single trunk. It just goes up all the way to the sky. There's a single, no branches, no leaves, just one trunk that's 3,000 years old that goes up to the sky. And on it had AR-12 loves Devontae Adams etched in, the wood with the little heart and the arrow, right? That's how I imagine it. Maybe there's a hole in it for a squirrel. But the idea is that tree, the Seneca, has tipped over. Remember, what's going to grow in this thing's place? I mean, Aaron Rodgers has been hyper-targeting a single player for a long time. We also know a lot of times happen with veterans. Not saying they don't like rookies, but they don't like rookies missing assignments that get you in the doghouse.
I'll tell you what's growing.
I'll
tell you what's there. A saguaro cactus is what's there.
No one knows what that is. Is that a succulent? Is that in the
It's going to be 3 or 4 arms. They're really spiky, and if you touch them, you're going to get hurt. You're going to get hurt really bad. It's a saguaro cactus. But actually, what's
that's
funny
a
about
good
that,
one. That's a damn good analogy. I have to get a picture of that.
What's funny about that is that's part of that thing. Everyone freaked out. Christian Watson wasn't playing. Everyone's like, he's the guy. He's the
guy. Off the pup on Monday.
They put him off the pup out there. I think Dubs is it's a little bit overblown if you're going nuts, but I love him as a back-end wide receiver. Where do I think it's going to go? It's going to start with Lazard. I took Randall Cobb in this crazy deep league we do because there is a trust level that's just still going to be there. Christian Watson looks
Welsh
like
is a known Cobb sucker.
I am a Cobb sucker.
Oh, hello.
Cobb is going to be out there. Also, let's not forget, both those running backs are going to have a heavy share of the receptions that are going to go on in this offense. Aaron Jones might even play that role more than we think.
You think they see the field at the same time?
Yes, I do. I think they should. I think they absolutely should. I don't think this is going to have to be a complimentary situation. I think they need offensive weapons out there. They need trust that's going to be out there. So put both of them out. So you've got both of those guys. You've got Lazard. You've got Cobb. You've got Watson. So where does that leave Dubs? I think Dubs is fun. I think it's a great look that we're going to look back on. But do I think he's going to jump in and be a starter? I don't. I think Watson will get.
Oh no, you don't think he's a too wide outside?
I don't.
Because Cobb's really a slot guy. So who do you think is in the second wideout?
Watson. I think Watson. I don't think Dubs is going to get I don't think he has the trust. I think there's also it's rumors, but that Rodgers wants the veterans. He wants the guys that have been there. He doesn't, want then that's Watson, a little bit of an issue. Not to say that there's another wide receiver out there they don't pick up, but I think it's going to start with Watson and Lazard. I know Cobb is a slot guy, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him in 2 wide receiver sets as well. So I don't think Dubs is going to be the starter. I think maybe some fun could get out there if there's injuries, but I think it's a little too early to anoint just because of the preseason stuff. But maybe I'm wrong, Boggs. Pickens will be. I don't think Romeo is.
Yeah, I mean,
hold on 1 second. I want to ask you something specific because another one with the targetry. The other problem I've had because the way Chris painted the picture actually is kind of tantalizing. There's maybe some meat on the bone there. My worry is what I wanted to get to because you have a very unique understanding of that division. You're watching it closely. You're always very good with them. All the North teams on both conferences, they move really slowly. The Packers, something I've also heard you talk about in the past. I've almost had that. It's become unattractive to me, the Packers offense, because of that pace.
I mean, okay, but Aaron Rodgers is still going to throw for over 4,000 yards, right?
He's that efficient.
Yeah. Okay. So you're not
worried about the totals, is what I mean. That's
no, I'm not. Okay. No, I'm not. But this situation is like herding cats, because you have a veteran. Sammy Watkins is a good wideout, right?
Herding, not hurting. All right. Sorry.
Herd, like herding cattle, herding cats. Yeah. We're not hurting cats. We're herding cats.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Look, Lazard, I think, is going to be your number one. I think Tunyon, since he's back from the pup, he's probably going to have a decent role as well. look, the thing is, it's better to look good than look bad in the preseason, right? You'd much rather have Dubs look bad. I did mention this when he's drafted. He's a deep threat. So, he is at best in your starting lineup most weeks, probably a wide receiver 3 or a flex at best. So, just because he looks good in the preseason and he's part of this good offense doesn't mean that he is going to be a guy that gets 9-8 targets a week and gets 6-7 catches and you hope for that score. No, he's going to be a boomer bust guy. He's going to be a guy that gets you 4 catches for 110 yards and a score, or he's going to be a guy that gets you 3 catches for 17 yards. And you're like, what the hell happened to Romeo Dubs? That's what he's going to be. So I don't have him. I might move him up in my next rankings because I do have him behind some duds like Parker and Duvernay. I'll move him ahead of those guys. Maybe I'll move him ahead of Sterling Shepard and Corey Davis and KJ Osborne, guys that are like 3s, but I'm not making it a priority to get Romeo Dubs. If I do take him, great. He's an upside play on my bench, but he's like a wide receiver 6, a wide receiver 5 on a deep roster. I'm not like prioritizing Romeo Dubs. I have Watson ranked higher. We haven't seen a lick of him. I have Lazard ranked higher, and I'm going to move Tunyon up because he's healthy now.
Yeah, I'm really buying all of that. I think in redraft leagues, if he gets drafted, Dubs is a good candidate to kind of be dropped after a couple weeks. And a guy that you want to circle, and if they build the chemistry or an injury happens, a guy with some ceiling. But yeah, I think that's a bit of fool's gold in redraft. Welsh, I can't get over how wonderful of an analogy it was. It was really great. I have to have you spell that because I have to find that. But it's funny how that it really does
cliches and analogies. Welsh,
but it really, he's very good at them. I hope. Well, I try my best, but I really think that target thing. I really do think it works. Last thing on the Packers is because you guys did a really good job. Me again, the selfish player says, "Wow, if you two guys are right, then Lazard and Tunyon are both being undervalued as floor kind of plays." Again, I don't think there's game breaking all this stuff here. But for redraft leagues, dude, you give me a tight end that's good for like 665 and a pop at 1, and a wide receiver who's good. The same thing is probably 7 for 65 as a floor. It's a high volume, but that's the kind of game that they're going to run. Yeah, there's a lot there. And again, you're going to get some end zone targets. It's Aaron Rodgers. If you get them there, they're pretty good. All right, guys, very last thing. Let's circle back to the thing we skipped, and we'll get everyone out of here at the hour mark. Is we did all this negativity. I kind of crapped on a bunch of players. How about the guys that you really like? Like, are there players that you are okay leaving with any draft at almost any, obviously not any cost, although to the any cost thing, I mentioned that flex draft. This is funny because as a lesson about bucking the market also, I had the 10, so that's a 10 and 15. I was going to go Lamb and Barkley, and I was wondering if I was going to get dragged for going Barkley over Swift. Long story short, DeAndre Swift went 4th overall because that draft I didn't think he'd make it back, and then Barkley went at the turn. So like, things are just completely on their head, but you should go get your guys. I'm not sure to what extent. I don't know what the future. So, Chris, who can't you get enough of? Like, who do you really love at cost and you just think is really going to move the needle for you?
Who I can't get enough of. So when I look at running backs, I can't get enough of Eli Mitchell. His cost is so pretty. And I mean, I'm going to get at this point, John, and maybe you need to reflect. You hate the Niners. Like, you have crapped on Trey Lance, you've crapped on Deebo Samuel.
Yeah.
There's not a Niner you like. And your face when I said that, you're like, really interesting. You don't like the Niners.
It's a lot of mush, it feels like. Who's going to get it? I'm just, you're talking about
Eli's one, though. Eli's one.
Eli is the number one running back.
First offense.
Absolutely. One of the most efficient as far as breaking tackles goes, as far as yards after the contact as a rusher, and his cost, it's just cheap. It's just dirt cheap. Like I would love him in the 3rd, but you don't have to take him in the 3rd. You can get him later in drafts. Eli Mitchell, Travis Etienne, both of those guys I love, really at whatever cost and based whatever cost relative to like where they are, I would throw that out. Khalil Herbert is another one of those guys I want to really prioritize. Sure I'm getting. What's that?
Same vein. I like you're on talent. You're on guys that if they get the rock are legit 110 rushing yard a game guys. So I really like where you're going. I do.
Yeah, and then I throw out like the rookie wideouts. I think they're just such great costs. Like Bogman and I have said, once you have 3 wideouts, we are prioritizing your 4th wide receiver being one of the rookie.
Can you rank a few? Give us a few that you like.
Yeah, Drake London would be the first one.
Yeah.
I absolutely want to make sure I can try to get Drake London. I'm not going to be scared off of Treylon Burks. and
Oh, that's
Sky
another
Moore.
interesting
Those
one.
are my three.
Yeah.
I know Boggs is George Pickens over like Sky Moore, but I really like Sky Moore.
George Pickens
So
over Cooper Cup.
George Pickens over
Yeah,
Calvin
exactly.
Johnson.
Over everybody.
Yeah.
Jerry
over
Rice.
Cooper
Yeah.
Cup, right.
So those three. So give me one of the, and I probably have a share of each of one of those three guys in every single
Right.
draft I've done, either London, Burks, or Sky Moore. I've got to get one of those rookies as my fourth. So I'm really comfortable with that because the cost is super efficient.
Okay, I want to take a quick loss again. Man, it's a lot. It's a lot, and that's why I listen to smart people. And I don't just listen to people. I go to verify. So again, I want to just take a quick L. Week 17 last year, Trey Lance started for San Francisco. He put up 249, 2-1 through the air, 8 for 31 on the ground. That very same game, Elijah Mitchell went 21 for 119, added 2 catches for 11 and a touchdown. The stinky, yucky face was so much rushing to share, so many rushing attempts, and now we're introducing a running quarterback, right? It's intuitive and it made sense.
Yeah, but he'll work better.
Stupid.
Eli Mitchell, being a smaller back, will work better off those RPOs with Lance.
Yeah. See,
So I think he's got more upside this year than last year.
All right, how about you, Scotty? Who do you love, man? Who can't you get enough of?
Javonte Williams is probably my number one in terms of guys that I am higher than most people in the industry on because I don't believe this is a 50-50 split with Melvin Gordon. They let Melvin Gordon be a free agent for 2 months. They signed him 2 days before the draft started. So I think Javonte is going to be the man in Denver. I think it's closer to 70-30, 80-20 than it is 50-50. So I am all in on Javonte. Juju Smith-Schuster, look, I watched him in Pittsburgh. He's my number one seed. He's the guy that I'm probably going to leave having the most shares of because I have him as my wide receiver 20. I think he has wide receiver 1 upside in that offense. He's awesome. And like Welsh said, I'm just going to jump on that board too. I'm going to mention a couple of the other rookie wide receivers, but I also love both those guys that he just mentioned. I don't believe that Garrett Wilson is going to end up being, the wide receiver 4 on this team in New York at all. I think he's already better than everybody else on that roster, not named Elijah Moore. I think by the end of the year, he could be better than Moore as well. So I am really high on him. And Chris Olave getting a lot of buzz, looks like a number 1 with the Saints. Same thing with Jahan Dotson. I'm investing in a rookie wide receiver. Pickens is amazing. Sky Moore has upside in Kansas City, although I'm a Juju guy. So just find the rookie wideout you like. Find the cost that you like. If you want to go way cheap, do that and get Dotson. If you want to pay up a little bit, take one of these other guys that Welsh mentioned, Drake London. I like Chris Olave. Invest in a rookie wideout this year. Do that for sure.
Oh my gosh. If you are right about Javonte Williams, I am not going to win any money this year. He's a perfect
got Melvin
example
Gordon everywhere.
I haven't. No, he's a 0 share guy for me. Javonte is. Okay. I'm really worried about I think Denver is really good, which is funny because I don't think he's going to be good because Denver is so good, but I think that's going to affect the scripts that he's vulnerable to. I'm not necessarily on Melvin fit for 50%. I don't necessarily have my sign on the freeway for that. But I do think he's a 40% guy. I think he's going to eat up some of the fantasy gunk that we don't necessarily want, but I think he's a piece of it. I also think he's the goal line guy to a certain extent. We've just seen that story before. Welsh, not digging my opinion. I get it. He's a big Javonte guy. He had it enough. Although he
had to leave. Yeah,
but he was hosting. Are we still recording though?
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Oh, that's
I
great.
still got
That's awesome.
Because I also have the stream.
Oh, that's great. All right, so I'll get you out of here in a minute. We'll wrap it up. So yeah, Javonte, I really like, and if I want to be very clear, if he's a 70% guy, he's like the RB1 very likely. That's I think very highly of him. It's just what if it turns out he's like a slot guy. He's
never done it. He's never done it. He didn't do it at North Carolina. He didn't do it last year.
Yeah.
So he's never been the guy to carry the workload. But like I said, they did not prioritize signing Melvin Gordon at all whatsoever.
You're right.
This team. They let him be a free agent for 2 months. He came this close to signing with the Ravens when they had all their RB injuries as well going into the year. And we're still not sure about Dobbins, and Gus Edwards just is not going to start the year. So, I just don't think that it's a new coaching staff there. They don't love Melvin Gordon the way the old staff did. They brought him back because he's a good locker room guy. He's very familiar with the rest of the team here. But I don't think he is a big part of their plans. It's definitely not 50-50. I don't think it will be. Okay. There might be games where it's 50-50, but I don't think for the season it'll be 50-50. I am all in on Javonte.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I didn't mean to imply like if they're ahead, he's necessarily scripted out. We have just seen. I mean, especially in the first half and maybe the second half of the season was more indicative of what we'll see. But especially in like those middle weeks from 4 through 10, I mean, carries 8.
They're going to
7,
have to go
4.
point for point with a lot of these teams
You're
too.
right. I
You
mean,
know,
that
because the
division is
Chargers
also everyone's
improved,
licking
the
their lips.
Raiders
Yep.
improved,
Yep,
the Chiefs are still good. So
that's the
yeah.
pathway. And again, why I knowingly have an L on this one, or very potential, because not just pathway, like I said, Scotty, pathway to the nut hand. That's a pathway.
Yeah.
He's a pathway to the nut hand. So I don't have him because of price. And I've been like, I guess I've been smashing the button for Lenny Fournette in that spot, right? Mid-second round.
I love Fournette.
Yeah, the guy
I'm a Fournette guy. And I was, even when he got cut,
he's fat.
I
love that.
Yeah. I love
that. Don't bother us
Fat
none.
Lenny's my guy.
Yeah, that don't bother us none.
Yeah.
Lenny 5 net. I'm down with a little Lenny 5 net. You go up to 5.5 net. I don't care. All right, hold on. Let's do my guys, and it's actually going to tie into all this really great stuff, which always happens when I speak to you. We always kind of leave these layers and they circle back, which is cool. And it'll be so. My guys, number one, it's pretty easy for me. It's Allen Robinson.
Okay.
I always considered him a number one talent, and then we got number one production, but he's never had a good quarterback.
Never.
And I know that narrative's been beaten to death. But that is one of the things that I will repeat others saying, because I said at the open, man, I bet football, dude. Like, it's about
the same thing was true for Cooper Kupp last year.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So.
And quarterback play is just very important. You know what's funny? You say that, and everyone's like, John, very smart.
But there's guys that Larry Fitzgerald performed with awful dog-ass quarterbacks. So did DeAndre Hopkins, right? Like, we've seen guys, Calvin Johnson, overcome rough QBs. I guess Calvin had Stafford, so he wasn't bad. But we've seen a lot of good wide receivers overcome some garbage wideouts, but most wideouts don't. Those are Hall of Fame level wideouts. Allen Robinson's great. I don't know that he's a Hall of Famer.
How was Fitzgerald and Warner? They were okay, right? They did okay.
They did all right. Yeah, they did okay. But he was also pretty good with John Skelton.
Yeah,
you know. So
anybody marked it in your bingo card? If you had John Skelton, ding ding ding, you're the big winner. That's fantastic. Okay. So Allen Robinson again, right? It makes a lot of sense. Pathway to the nut hand, and we never want to put the Maloik on anybody. But if something were to happen to our precious Cooper Kupp, Allen Robinson becomes. I know it's oversimplified. I tend to think of people in week by week DraftKings daily kind of thing. Without Cooper Kupp, Allen Robinson is a top wide receiver, top 3 price wideout. So for me, that one's pretty easy. The potential, I think, the environment, and I think the talent is there. The other one was Mark Andrews, tight end, and it's going to where that's going to tie into
favorite strategy, John.
Yeah,
where it's going to tie in.
Yeah, where it ties in, and I wonder. I think we might be simpatico here. Is it ties into the young wide receivers beautifully. So, again, I like to look in, and not to stress scarcity, but I think of it as demands and winning big tournaments. I want running backs that I don't have to worry about. I want week 1 starters. So you got to get those in the front. Then I want tight ends. I just covered this at the Athletic. To me, there's 2 or 3 guys that are separative, determinant. Kelsey, Andrews, and Pitts. Pitts, the worst ecosystem. Kelsey, the highest price. For me, Mark Andrews, this porridge is just right. That's how simple it is. That's how simple it is to me. I also think
it's my favorite strategy. I love picking 1 or 2 and seeing Andrews come back to me. That's what I want. That's what I want right there.
He was one of the 23 players in the league that met my elite triple slash requirements of 20 target, 25 air yard, and a double-digit A-dot. So don't be confused with the tight end designation. He's a wide receiver with wide receiver.
He's the first receiving option on that team. Over Bateman,
and they're excellent.
And
the connection, the continuity, the things that I really care about are excellent. Maybe it's short of Mahomes, Kelsey, but it's way ahead of
me, the Texas
Mario
fan, the Longhorn Steelers fan talking up the Ravens sooner.
Yeah,
so,
right. That's all you had to know. Right there, you go, people. There you go. Although I have found, I think your analysis is beyond bias. Although,
sure.
Mark
Andrews also went to my high school. So
yeah,
there you go.
name drop. All right, so okay, so
not with me. I'm way older than him.
I liked. Right. Oh, you need to go together. Right. We need to go together.
No.
I really do this year, especially, these are big market things. It was 0 RB, then it was all RB. I found now everybody's pushing wide receivers up. I want solid running backs. I take pretty much 2 running backs and a tight end in the first 3 rounds lately. That's what I've been finding, and locking those up with Mark Andrews sandwiched in the middle. Or if you're on the And maybe you could let Andrews fall to the early part of the third where, you might have gotten, it could be McCaffrey, and then sometimes it's like Aaron Jones falls, or it's that Lenny Fournette, or sometimes it's Javonte Williams at the turn with Mark Andrews. And I'm like, wow, now you don't have to spend extra roster spaces. And that's been my best ball strategy. Maybe it's a little bit different, although I think Andrews plays in any format. But for me, that's been one of my keys to winning best ball people before we get out of here has been there aren't enough roster spots. Like, are we arguing that? There aren't enough roster spots to finish a season. So how do you capitalize on the lack of roster spots would be to use less of them. One way to use less of them for me is Mark Andrews. So instead of like, if you have Andrews, you only need one other tight end. Remember, you have to draft these things as if you're correct. So you don't draft Mark Andrews and then come back for like Cole Kmet or some sleeper tight end. You have to play for the win. So you get Mark Andrews, and then you just go for Evan Ingram in the last round.
How many weeks is Cole Kmet, even if he is a sleeper? How many weeks is he going to play over Andrews? Maybe 5.
I can't believe people do that. And even more so, they burn the extra roster space. So in the 18 round best balls, if you push up Pitts or Andrews, you don't need a third tight end.
Right.
If you get one of the 5 running quarterbacks, you don't need a third quarterback. Mm-hmm. If you get 3 strong running backs or 2, you don't need that 7th or 8th. And that allows you to, drumroll people, do what Scotty said, which is then throw the entire wall at these wide receivers. Because I'm not just, right, that's my thing, Scott. I'm not just like, I like this, and this, but they don't work together. The strategies I give, I want them to work together. So I'm saying.
Well, this year, wide receivers so deep. We talked about the rookie class. That's why I'm investing in RBs. Running back, Mark Andrews running back. That is my draft strategy every single draft.
And then you can go. Then sometimes I'll even get the quarterback for, let's say Allen's falls.
Premium QB, because wide receiver is so deep. I like to get it. You have to have at least one this year, in my opinion. You have to have an elite quarterback or an elite tight end. You got to get one of those, our buddy PCP would call RPV, relative position value, where there's the top group and then there's everybody else. Tight end, thinner than QB by a wide margin. So it's always Andrews to me.
And I'll have again, I ran projections against ECR where Evan Ingram projects is the same as like Darren Waller, dude. I'm serious. These projections are marginal. The differences are really marginal. They really are. And unless you're getting the top guys, you might as well wait for the bottom. So that's what I've been doing is that's what I mean. Names, it's 2 running backs with a tight end, the first 3. I don't necessarily saying that you have to get a quarterback 4, but I want the quarterback before 7. And then 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 are all wide receivers. Guys, you mentioned mixing Juju Smith-Schuster, maybe with Sky Moore. Again, pathway to the nut hand. So people, I hope you really enjoyed it. That was like everything we were hoping for. Scotty, I really appreciate you guys' time. A little bit longer than I promised you, but close this out, man. Where can people find your stuff one last time? People, please sign up to their fantasy Patreon, because when I stop doing fantasy, I don't want you to bother me. I'm just kidding.
Obviously, you can check out the Welsh and I on Twitter at Bogman Sports for me, at Is It The Welsh for him. All of our stuff over at, you can just go to inthisleague.com. That'll take you to our Patreon, or patreon.com/ITL Army. If you prefer to go that way, we'll take you to all of our stuff. We're doing our live shows on Twitch Monday through Thursday. Every single day, we have a live show for an hour on Patreon those same days as well. Plus, all of our ITL content, our baseball or football podcast, Welsh has Prospect One. I have the individual defensive podcast with Gary Davenport. We're both on Fantasy Pros. Welsh is doing leading off right now. I am doing the Dynasty podcast with Pat Fitzmaurice. I'm going to be doing an IDP show with Joe. I'm going to be doing a college football show with Thor Nystrom. I'm on CFP Winning Edge. We're on, FNTSY Radio. Like you can, if you like our voices, you like what we talk about, you can hear us somewhere. So please check it out.
Lazy, unavailable, just how do you find this guy? I don't know, people. You got to really go for it. Again, I think all of that prominence, I think, is very well rewarded. Seriously, Scott, you're the man. You guys are great.
Thank you, Johnny. Thank you for having me on, and you are awesome too.
It's what we do. You guys are funny, but you brought the smoke, and I think that's. I'm telling you, we were talking about this off air before. That's the new. That's what people want. There's stuff shirt, and then there's like goof, and we tend to live in that center part of the Venn diagram very happily. I think, you know what I mean.
Well, I want to listen to people that I would like to have a beer with. That's pretty much what the bottom line
right.
is.
But you also, you know what? Again, you're a bit modest because you're more than just a beer. I know we're going to laugh, but dude, you're very good at teaching. But I know, again, you don't take the credit for that side of it, but you do. We learned a lot today. I had an awesome time, and gosh, I guess I need to draft more George Pickens. All right, everybody, let's get out of here. That was more than enough. We're pushing the 90-minute mark. Rate, review, and subscribe to the audio-only pod. Give us the cartoon finger on YouTube. That stuff really matters. There's a week and a half left of the Corked Stats Baseball Show before we make the full pivot into football. Download the Jock Market app. Hit them up on Twitter. Thank them for picking up the show. We're going to be kicking their tail in football, which is really awesome. I mean, that game, I don't know if you've played, Scott. We could talk over air. It lends itself to football. It's really nice. The idea, very simple, people. DFS, which I love, and there's a place for, is a 9-team parlay, no matter how you slice it. Okay.
Yeah.
And you can hit 6 or 7. And if you get a couple goose eggs, it just doesn't pay the bills. Where Jock Market, because the shares are individualized, if you hit big on the one player, it lifts your whole portfolio and you make money that day, or at least be break even. And that's been the big difference for us. Is
I like it.
We're normally okay, right? Okay. Like if you're okay, you could break even. And
51%.
Yeah, in daily, it can be very difficult to play flat. When you lose a lot, no matter how good you are, because the field is sharp and optimizers and all that stuff, which I get. But this has been more like, this is a value. You could smash him and expect to make 25% today, make 40% today. DK, again, everybody's shooting the moon looking for $1 million. This is more like, if you're a grinder and into grinding profits, I'm up. This is funny. I'm up 15,000% on the free promo. And there's no, dude, there are no jackpots. So it's not like I won $1 million and I've been playing on that. You just have to, like the yodeler in Price is Right. All right. And once you're doing Price is Right references, it's over, people. That's it. We'll catch you. Enjoy your games. Enjoy the day. When we're done with the book, you enjoy that payment. When you work this hard, it feels a lot less like luck. Rate, review, and subscribe. Make sure you check out ITL. Love these guys. Enjoy your weekend. Peace.
See you, Johnny. Thank you.
Yeah.